I think the relevance of what's happening in terms of emotional well-being, of peace, in today's world, I don't need to comment about it. I think all of you are very acutely aware of the difficult times that we are passing through. And while we find different ways and mechanisms to address these external forces that seem to impact on our daily life and our behavior, it is, at the end of it, human beings that matter. And what we do to ourselves, how we behave, how can we exude positivity. And I think this idea of a human-centric or a human beings is something that we sometimes tend to gloss over or ignore. Complicating our challenges is also the usual march of technology, of AI, of competing other challenges. And I think, therefore, it is extremely useful to look at the emotional aspect of emotional self-care. And I thank you, Jayanti, for choosing this topic. I am very happy that the World Health Organization in particular has a dedicated unit on traditional and complementary and integrative medicine, TCI unit, which looks very closely at how we can look at other forms of healing, and that's an important word that I would focus on. We have a global center for traditional medicine that's coming up in Jamnagar. We have a TCI unit that does enormous activities, and we partner with WHO particularly, so thank you, Madam Nakatani. And let me just, I'm not the focus today, but let me just emphasize to you how much we believe that this is useful and beneficial. And such a large turnout only reinforces our belief that this is something that we are all interested in, and that is all for the well-being of all of us, even in a place like the United Nations, which tends to focus on so many other issues. So thank you very much. I hope you find today's session very useful. I invite you all to join us tomorrow morning. And of course, let's look forward to a great session with Sister Jayanti. Thank you, ma'am.
It's a real pleasure to join you here today to celebrate the International Day of Yoga and discuss the importance of emotional self-care. My comments as the Deputy Director General of the International Labor Organization are going to focus primarily on self-care in the workplace. Part of the work we do as the ILO is to make working conditions better for workers across the world. That includes occupational safety and health, which includes mental health, and it's important for all of us. Today's event is very timely. We're living in a world of heightened uncertainty and multiple crises, which is impacting all of our lives, including in the workplace. So this is clearly true for those living through conflict in Sudan, excessive heat in North America, and flash floods in China. But it's also true for UN staff globally, who right now, many of them are uncertain about their future ahead. Will they have a job and income in the coming months? So a critical first step to try and address these challenges is to openly acknowledge the impact of life's pressures on mental health. Since many of us spend the majority of our waking time in our workplace, a key dimension of how work impacts us and its potential to create stress and even lead to burnout is critical to acknowledge. It also impacts our relationships with friends and with loved ones. Acknowledging these pressures helps promote self-awareness. As managers, we must signal staff and others around us that it's legitimate and safe to talk about these issues. This helps normalize these conversations and reduce stigma. It's a step toward acknowledging that we are not just colleagues in the workplace, but we all have a shared humanity with strengths and weaknesses, hopes and desires, like all human beings. But beyond that acknowledgement, we must take concrete steps, including in the workplace. We need to show empathy and commitment to staff well-being, encouraging employees to speak up about challenges without fear of judgment or negative consequences. By showing compassion and kindness, it helps make it possible for colleagues to speak up and say they need understanding and even help. That may mean, for example, not taking on new work unless other demands are deprioritized. It might mean seeing a doctor or a counselor. It might mean adjusting how our teams better collaborate and coordinate to support each other. It might even mean just going for a walk. But this can't be done by emails or via Teams messages or on WhatsApp. We need to speak directly with staff, check in on how they're doing in person and regularly. We also need to listen to each other. Just being available matters. At the same time, we need to be open as managers about our own stress and challenges, and when appropriate, to be clear about the measures that we're taking to look after our own well-being. In some offices, the mood of the leader affects the mood of the entire staff. So self-care can actually be community care. Ultimately, as managers, we must lead by example. When senior officials do this, it ensures that mental health becomes a shared responsibility across an organization, moving from awareness to tangible support, including training, resources, and inclusive policies. Senior officials can demonstrate the priority that they place on their own mental health by taking leave, teleworking when they need silence, and demonstrating respect and dignity for all of our constituents and our colleagues. At all levels in an organization, we need to provide the flexibility and the autonomy for staff to ensure that they feel empowered and in control, and they can have help balancing their work and life commitments.
The self-care is the most meaningful when it supports both physical and mental health. So they're both the linkage between the mental and the physical. So thank you very much again to give me this opportunity to consider my self-care, both mental and physical. And also WHO offers so far evidence-based guidance to help people practice self-care safely and effectively, set out the WHO guideline of the self-care interventions for health and well-being. And now also we providing the digital tool can help make self-care more practical and accessible. Here is the WHO M Yoga app. I downloaded this morning. Thank you very much for opportunities again. And then this is also supported by the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. Thank you very much for supporting this app having a lot of the short video to doing the practice safety and effectively. So better to learn and collect practice. This is the also important to keeping your self-care much better. Then, so let us commit to promote self-care for the all, for the respecting traditions, advancing the evidence-based policies, investing in digital tools, and promoting the everyone practice. So I'm not joining the tomorrow morning, but I try to do by myself in my house tomorrow. And then may this International Day of Yoga so inspire us to practice self-care so that we may better serve one another and also world we share. So I try to keep my body nice and try to my mental health be healthy in the coming months. So thank you very much again. So they are Daniel Bart, arigato.
So as has been said already by our distinguished guests on the stage this afternoon, we are indeed gathering at a time of unprecedented global challenge and upheaval. Most people would argue that the world is reaching a point of crisis. Like the crisis point of a sick patient, we either break down or we break through. And the evidence of the breakdown is all around us. Behind every headline of conflict and war, every climate-fueled disaster, every report of violence and death, of displacement and loss, is a human story of fear, disillusion, overwhelm, and grief. Even our so-called everyday lives are becoming more challenging by the day. It seems like more and more life is happening more and more of the time. The challenges just keep on coming. If not directly to us, then to those around us, our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, to the world in general. And if you need evidence of the increasing pressures on us all, you need look no further than the breakdown of mental health happening all around, as has already been mentioned. Some are even calling it a global mental health crisis. where anxiety, insecurity, and depression are all on the rise. Under pressure, something has to give. So given this time that we're all living through, the importance of self-care and self-compassion cannot be overstated. Emotional self-care, taking time for the self, creating nourishment for the inner being, finding the point of inner stillness in this turning world. They're all ways of preventing the downward spiral of stress and burnout, and instead discover an upward spiral of well-being and spiritual resilience. We can learn ways to not only survive, but thrive, despite what is going on around us, so that when the next global shockwave comes along, we can be prepared. We can bend to the challenges of change and not be broken by them. We do this for ourselves, but we also do this for others, so we can show up for them with our love, our strength, and our support when they are in need. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Sister Jayanti has spent her entire adult life being there for others. As a senior Raja Yoga meditation teacher with the Brahma Kumaris for almost 60 years, she has led by example and shone a pure light into the world, a light of inner transformation and outer change, inspiring millions on every continent to take up a spiritual practice to support in this process. For her, a tipping point isn't about tipping into environmental disaster, but one where human consciousness itself tips into a natural state of being, where love, kindness, and compassion become the norm. A state in which we realize our human potential. As well as being the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, she's also the organization's representative to the United Nations here in Geneva. Sister Jayanti, a very, very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for being with us today.
I'd like to begin with a greeting of peace, Om Shanti. Your Excellency, Ambassador Bagachi, Mrs. Drake, and Dr. Nakatani, and a special thank you to our Consul General who's here, who has been a very, very leading figure in making all of this happen. Perhaps we could begin with just a moment of silence, going on that inner journey. Just sit relaxed. Hatha Yoga will be something we experience tomorrow, but the first step of Raj Yoga is just letting the body be comfortable and relaxed. Taking a journey inwards, coming to the awareness of the inner being, the being who I am. I can feel the light shining within. Each one of us is that inner being, a being filled with goodness, with love, peace, and truth. This is the inherent state of the inner being. I stay in this awareness, connected with the being who I truly am. And the light from this room multiplies as we join together collectively. And the light radiates out not only into the city, but far beyond into the world. Thank you. I know that we've had a very interesting explanation of why we're taking up this subject here today. And this year, I know that health is very much part of the agenda for the International Yoga Day, but in particular, mental health, because that is the pandemic of our times. Several questions have been raised, and Philippa will be sharing those questions.
Thank you very much for bringing us all into this space, Sister Jayanti, with those lovely words. We are talking about emotional self-care, and I'd like to begin with an incident that you and I both experienced yesterday, which in a way illustrated what so many of us are going through in our lives, which is when something comes into your life that you really didn't see coming, and it comes from outside of your field of vision, and suddenly it crashes onto your lap, and you have to deal with it. Sister Jayanti and I were traveling in a car together yesterday where we kind of experienced exactly that. Do you want to just say, Sister Jayanti, what happened and how you coped in that moment?
We were very comfortable sharing exchanges of what had been happening through the day. And then there was a little bit of a quiet time in the car. And I must have been reading something. I looked down. And then suddenly I hear this big sound, and there's been an impact. And I see the windscreen. I was sitting in the front passenger seat, and the whole windscreen has been shattered. And there's a horse that's running wild. It sounds like, you know, opera, soap opera. It's not something that would happen in a normal situation. And the driver calmly moves across and comes to a standstill by the side. And the horse is gone. And another car comes up, and a woman says, but the driver must have fallen off somewhere. And the rider, and she goes off, and apparently there was a riding school just a few minutes away from where we were, and so she went to find out what was happening there. And it seems that the horse was not in a good mental state. That's a strange thing to say, but apparently the history is that he had been beaten by his previous owner, and the riding school had taken him in to support him in his healing. And meanwhile, a very young girl comes up, and she's a little bit distraught and is saying, what happened? Where is the horse? And she was a bit disheveled, and she had been riding and had fallen off the horse. The horse had actually shaken her off, and he then moved very quickly away into the path of the car and then headed off to the school. It sounds totally strange, but it is, as Philippa said, an unexpected situation that landed in our laps, and all of us in the car were meditators, so I don't think there was anyone who panicked, but the little girl was really panicking. But we calmed her down, but also she went off to the riding school. And we did all the things we needed to do, call the police, call the insurance company, and so on. And when the police came, they did what they needed to do. But it was really interesting because each and every one of us was absolutely calm, doing what needed to happen. And I didn't need to do anything except just send lots of loving good wishes. And finally it turned out that the horse had to be taken. The horse had a wound. None of us were hit. The glass was all around me in the car in the front seat. But I came out very easily, and it took a long time, but we just had to be very, very calm and stable and help the girl calm down, but also then we understood what the whole background was. So it's a fact that you really don't know what's going to happen next moment. And when the recovery guy came, he looked at the car and said, it's a write-off. but that's okay. The driver, the owner, was also a meditator and so was very calm. And we managed to get to the retreat place by calling a taxi company. And next morning, we were up for our meditation and also our morning class. We heard that the horse was okay, he was running. But yes, he was taken to the hospital, to the animal hospital, to get the wound stitched up because there was still blood coming. The girl was okay, her mother had come and she had calmed down. So just an example of how in any situation, if I stay calm, others also stay calm, and even if perhaps they hadn't been, but the collective energy of all of us made sure that everything was very calm and things got resolved in the way that they should, with a lot of peace. And the most surprising thing was that Isnel, the coordinator of our Geneva center, was of course with us, and the policewoman, there was a policeman and a policewoman, both had come, and the policewoman had been kicked by the horse when she'd gone across to the riding school to see what was going on. The horse had kicked her. The horse was still in trauma, but she was fine, and she had a bit of pain, but we helped her with some homeopathy, and she was okay. But also, she became very, very interested in finding out about meditation, because how come all of us were calm when this strange situation had taken place? So we thought that we'd share this incident with you, just as a reminder that sudden incidents don't happen far away in Ukraine and Israel and other places, but sudden incidents can happen absolutely in your own neighborhood, wherever it is you are. And whatever are your inner resources kick in at that time. And at that moment, the most important thing is to try this exercise that we were sharing a little while ago. Just coming back here to the awareness of the inner being, and that each and every one of us is that shining light, the light of goodness, love, and truth. And if this mantra is not a mantra in the sense of chanting something, but it is a sacred space in which one can enter and experience the inner being. And if I can do that, and if we can share these concepts, then I think the world would be a very different place.
Thank you, Sister Jayanti. You didn't mention that the horse completely landed on the bonnet of the car right in front of your face. And it was quite something to witness, the absolute calm in the car after the incident. But of course, people are going through different things all the time. As was mentioned earlier, we've been hearing about layoffs here at the UN. We have people getting ill. We have people dying suddenly. There's a lot of suffering and sorrow in the world at this time. And people respond in different ways, either with going into fear, sometimes into anger and being called to protest, sometimes into depression and just giving up altogether. How do we take a closer look at our own emotional state when we are in the crux of an absolute emergency situation or a challenging situation to our emotions? How do we moderate those moments?
With everything that we do in the world, we know that you have to first understand something, and then you have to practice it, rehearse it, and then you're going to be able to use it in the best way possible. Nothing happens just by chance, just like this, in terms of our emotional response to something. But just as with anything else, as a training process. And so firstly, the awareness that it's my own thoughts that create my feelings and my emotions. And is there a training I can have to be able to move my thoughts in the direction that I would like them to go in? And most times we would say, well, thoughts are coming to me from all the things that are going on out there. But yet, in fact, two people can be in the same place and a situation happens. one will respond in one way, another will respond very differently. So it's not just the external stimulus. There is definitely something that's going on inside that's been triggered that is causing the response, the reaction. And so I think if we can have a little bit of time in which we look at what's going on inside and just do a self-audit. If at the end of the day, I look at myself and ask, well, could I have done something differently? Probably in that calm state at night, whatever the situation may have been, you'll be able to find that there were alternative ways in which you could have handled things more peacefully, more calmly, with perhaps greater love, greater compassion. And that self-audit is what then allows me to go on that inner journey, recognizing that I need to do something about my own inner state of awareness, because mental health doesn't begin with a crisis and then trying to find medicine for it or counseling for it, but it actually can be stopped much earlier. Mrs. Drake spoke very beautifully about the self-care that's needed and the initiatives that ILO have in place for all the things that are being taken to take care of mental well-being, and I applaud those. My own inner awareness is what can help me create that powerful state in which I know that whatever may happen, my response will come from a place of goodness and not anger or greed or ego or attachments. These are the normal reactions of the world today. And that's because the energy level of the world has been gradually declining. And today we're seeing huge, massive forms of ego on display and anger and all the other negative forces. But it's possible for me not to be influenced by all this negativity and be part of the ascending energy, the energy of belief in values, a desire to return to values which are the core values of the human spirit, looking at things from a holistic perspective rather than a narrow tunnel of just materialism and consumerism. So if I can start looking at these factors, self-care begins with myself looking inwards. And when I start going on that inner journey, then I realize that it is possible to take charge of my own mind. We practice what's called Raj Yoga, and it's a very lovely term. Yoga means connection, union, connectivity. It means communion, communication. So yoga is at the heart of many things, but there's also the word Raja, the king, the leader, the highest, the supreme. And Raj Yoga is the practice of meditation in which the soul, the inner being, is connecting with the divine so that we're able to draw from that infinite source and be able to build up our own resources. You know, if you test a wire, it's an experiment that I think some of you would have done in the physics lab when you were age 12 maybe. But what is the stress factor of that metallic wire? And what is the stress load that you're putting on that wire? And you're able to find the stress point at which it can no longer cope, and it's not able to return to its original form. And so you do either one of two things. You start removing the weight, or you start reinforcing the strength of the wire. Can we remove all the problems of the world? Yes, we can, but not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But together, collectively, collaboratively, I believe that yes, humans have created the situation, and it's possible for humans to transform the situation also, with help from above. But yes, it's definitely possible. And we can do this firstly just for ourselves. Can I reinforce my own inner capacity? So just as you have capacity building in so many other areas of human expertise, this is also very important, capacity building for the spirit, for the being within. And if I spend a little bit of time each day practicing this awareness of who I truly am and connecting with the inner being and the one above, I'm going to be able to build up my reservoir of peace, of tolerance, of compassion, of truth. And when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, literally yesterday, you're able to cope with it differently. I'm sure that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe I might have had a bit of upheaval, but today I know that whatever may come, my hope is that my response will be from that space of peace and compassion. And so each one of us can do this for ourselves to build up that inner reservoir.
We met with a journalist this morning for an interview, and she made an interesting comment. She said it's very painful to be on the earth at this moment. And I think that's a sentiment that many people would recognize, faced with the level of suffering and sorrow in the world. How do we begin to cope with that? We don't want to normalize it. We don't want to turn away and pretend it's not happening. And yet living with that day to day sometimes feels like a burden more than we can cope with. How would you advise someone who's really feeling they can't do this, it's too much?
It begins with me, and what I can do is to start this journey of going within. Sometimes we use this word detachment and we don't fully understand it. It's not detaching from other human beings and their condition. It's not detaching from the state of the world, but rather it's being able to detach from my physical identity, which is based on so many temporary factors. Normally we would think about ourselves in terms of age or gender or nationality or religion or color, property, possessions, position. All of these things make up our identity. But no, that's not my true identity. My identity is really this inner being that thinks and feels and understands and remembers and has a conscience and also has a personality. That is the being that I am, the inner being. And while I've been caught up with the external identity, which is basically matter, we become highly materialistic, and consumerism has taken over practically everything. And so can I come back to my original state of the inner being and learn to be detached from all the things related to this, all the physical aspects of my identity. And in that awareness of the true being that I am, I'm able to see myself, I'm able to see others from a very different perspective. And in that perspective, yes, I know that my own feelings reach others, and if I can develop love and compassion, I can help others who are going through sorrow. If I myself don't have that capacity, how can I help anyone else? But if I get influenced by their sorrow to the point where I'm in tears, can I be of help to anyone else? But if I can allow my inner calm to be conveyed to them through my vibrations, through my actions, through my behavior, I can support them in my journey. And Margaret Mead said a long time ago, whenever there's been any positive change in the world, it hasn't happened through a vast majority. It's only ever happened when it's individuals, committed citizens, who come together to try and make a difference. And from that small group of committed individuals, there have been amazing things that have happened. Look at the history of the world in recent times, and you'll see that every positive change has happened just by a small group. And so today, I look at the sorrow of the world, but I know that this gathering, which actually is a very, very powerful gathering. This group of individuals can make a big difference because whatever it is I do, there's an impact on my family, on my circle of friends, on my community, to my country. And as all those networks come together, we make a difference to the world. And so I'm very pleased that we're celebrating Yoga Day, particularly in terms of health and mental health, because I think that all of us can make a huge difference to ourselves, definitely, but as we come together as a collective, that energy multiplies. And I know for sure that after the dark period, there's always a period of light. Night doesn't go on forever. And whatever is of sorrow and suffering has to come to an end, and a better world can happen. So I hope that today you leave with that vision of hope. For me, it's a certainty, but at least we begin with hope that yes, there are better days ahead, but I can make a personal contribution to making that better world happen.
So very much what you're saying is we're living through a transitional period where we're witnessing suffering, but it's not going to go on forever, is your message. There is hope that the world will eventually wake up and change. And I think many people in this room would be called to action, to doing something about the suffering that they see around them. And I wonder for you, at what point do we get called into taking a step forwards and rolling up our sleeves, maybe fighting for peace, activating and campaigning, but then there can come burnout because we give so much of ourselves, we have nothing left. How do we find that balance point between doing the inner reflection that you're talking about, but also taking a step forward into action?
I'd like to change one word. It's not eventually. I think we're at a cusp. I think we're at a turning point. I can't believe that 10 years ago such a gathering would have been possible, especially here at the UN. It is happening now, and we're focusing on the spiritual dimension. And I think that I see many, many signs of things moving to that critical point of mass when things will turn around. So I don't want you to think it's going to be eventually sometime unknown. I think that we have it within our capacity to actually make a difference, and within a very short space of time, there is going to be a difference. The other thing that I want to pick up on from your question is, can I ever fight for peace? It doesn't work, does it? But what I can do is allow the power of peace to grow so that it truly becomes a power, because peace is not passive. Peace is active. It's an energy that carries us forward. Whenever there's been huge strides in civilizations, it's been because there's been a peaceful environment that has created that. And so today also, if we decide, I'm going to stay peaceful, no matter what. Now, whether it's my little child who keeps tugging at me and wanting my attention, to what extent do I keep peaceful? It's a test of my peace. If a colleague at work again and again is interrupting what I'm saying, can I stay peaceful and manage that situation with tolerance, with equity, with calmness, equanimity? So we're facing challenges in our own lives in little ways, but it's a marker of what would my response be if somebody really got angry with me. And so little ways teach us the level of tolerance that we have, but having understood that, do I want to increase my own inner capacity of peace and the power of peace? And I think we can all do this. Yes, it's not to say that we sit back and wait for something to happen by magic. What happens is that once you're motivated to bring about inner transformation, there's a tremendous passion and energy you have to do things out there. So, for example, we run several hospitals in India, especially at Mount Abu in a very deprived tribal area. We have what is called India 1, which was the first solar thermal power station in India, and now there are many who have followed. But this is a thermal station that was able to store energy and was able then to be converted into electricity that provides lighting for a little township in Abu. So these are models, examples. We are experimenting with not just organic agriculture, but yogic organic agriculture. So yes, we are rolling up our sleeves and doing what we can. But what we found is that the motivation that happens when you really have that spirit of awareness within you, it makes a big difference. And whatever we do is for free, which is not so usual in today's world. But this is simply because we believe that sunshine is a gift from above, available for everyone. In the same way, spiritual knowledge must be made available to all, absolutely free of any cost. And so the work, for example, the R&D, the research and development we did for our solar system, our people have gone to other organizations who've requested, and they've just simply shown them how to do it. And that's without any charge, without a bill at the end of the day. So yes, it's important to do things in a practical way. But what's my motivation? Is it to serve? Is it to help? Is it to uplift others in whatever way it is? But it begins with that awareness within. Then it's not motivated by any selfish reason at all. So yes, roll up your sleeves, but first ask, am I doing this to satisfy my ego? Am I doing it for some money? Or am I doing it really out of love?
I don't know about you, but I was very inspired by the words that were shared by your fellow panelists, the language of emotional self-care that has come in even at this level at the United Nations. And, you know, you're the second in command of a large global organization, and here are you talking about taking care of yourself. And I wonder to what extent you feel there is a shift happening, because leaders and politicians often shy away from the language of emotional self-care because it can be seen as soft and weak. And yet what you're saying is that there is strength in that. Not only that, the world needs this quality going forwards. Do we have any hope for seeing change at that level amongst our leaders, that by taking care of ourselves, we take care of each other, and ultimately we take care of the planet?
I want to share a little story of what happened in Iceland just a few weeks ago in the month of May. And we have a program called Spirit of Humanity, which brings leaders from many, many different professions and backgrounds. And I see one of our people is also here, and she's on the executive committee. I'm glad to see you. We were in Iceland, and the president of Iceland had a very interesting statement to make. And she said this in public, so I'm sure she won't mind me repeating it to you. She stated that all the crises that we see happening outside are a result of what human beings have done. This is what we have done to ourselves and the planet. So who's going to take care of it? We've created it. We have to find solutions. But what we've been trying to do is find solutions outside. I believe that the answers are inside. We have to learn to go inside and find solutions. And a couple of years ago, the woman who was then Prime Minister, she is not that anymore, but she still came and shared in a very heartfelt way various experiences. But when she was still Prime Minister, again in Iceland, she spoke about how she recognizes the need for silence and how it's the power of silence that is needed by every political leader. Now, if we've come to the point where political leaders are able to make these public statements, and you can see these interviews and various things on the website of Spirit of Humanity. But if people are able to make these statements in public, knowing that people are listening, I think that it's an indication that there may be many, many others who are on that same wavelength or are moving in that direction. And so my hope is that more and more leaders will recognize this and take the next step for themselves. They don't have to make public announcements, but take those steps for themselves.
The need for silence is a message that is coming through very strong and clear. And I get the sense that in a way that is your secret to your inner stillness that is clear to see. I'd like to invite you, if you would, to just share with us an insight into what you do when you go into your own moment of inner reflection. And perhaps if there can be any tips for things that we can also do to help find that point of stillness, either within ourselves or some other place, that we can really practice in our day-to-day lives, just for a few moments. I think it would be lovely. It's nice for everyone to experience what we're talking about as well as using words.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for your attention. And just like we did earlier on, just sitting comfortably so that the body is relaxed and still, but the mind is alert. Both feet on the ground, preferably, so that the body is balanced. I let the body relax. I focus my thoughts on the inner being, the being of light. And in this awareness of the spirit, the inner being, I can feel that energy in the center of my forehead. I connect with the being of light that I am. I connect with the peace that lies within. Peace feels comfortable. Peace feels natural. Peace is who I am. As I become peaceful, I can sense the presence of the Source, the being of light, the Supreme, the Divine, the Source of peace, of love, of truth. And as my thoughts connect to the divine, the rays of peace and love reach the soul. And the love that is within emerges. Connected with my own inner core values, connected with the divine, I absorb the qualities from the divine within myself, so that truly the creation reflects the qualities of the Creator. These are the qualities which are part of the being that I am. They are there, inherent within every soul. And in this connection with the divine, they emerge and grow. The light emanating from the Supreme reaches not only me, but the entire human family. The light reaches out to the animal kingdom. So that they feel safe and secure. The light reaches out to all the elements of nature, nature itself, so that nature returns to a state of harmony. The light encompasses the entire globe and all within it. I hold this vision of a world of light, of peace, of justice, of truth. And I resolve to remind myself of this vision of a world of harmony each day, so that together we're able to make it happen with the confidence that yes, this is the way humanity can be and will be, with the power and light from above. Together, it can be a reality. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Jayanti. It feels very much like this practice helps you feel safe and supported in the world. And if we can learn to take ourselves into that place, it just brings a moment of calm when the world around us is anything but calm. Very, very valuable and beautiful. Thank you. We have a moment in our time together where it's a chance for you to have your say. If you would like to ask a question of Sister Jayanti, anything that has brought a question in your mind, it would be lovely to hear your questions, or indeed if our distinguished guests on the stage have any questions. And at this moment you get to feel like a real United Nations delegate, because you have to press the button on the console, on the little computer in front of you, the bottom right-hand button. If you would like to speak, be brave. We would love to hear your questions, and this is your moment. So would anyone like to press their button and ask their question?
I think today we spoke a lot about like the world and the surrounding that we live in, right? But obviously we are part of the world as well as individuals, right? So what are, like, I would say maybe 2 or 3 things that you would ask an individual to do, to firstly find that inner peace between, themselves, so that they can then eventually contribute towards, the peace of the world, if that is. So like just a small action, itinerary or 3 bullet points that one should do on a daily basis to find that inner peace within themselves. yeah, that would be great.
Thank you for your question. This is where self-care comes in a big way, that I must recognize that it's not selfish to make time for myself, but if I'm making time for myself, it's important and it can contribute to making me a more useful person, a better citizen, and a contributor to the world around me. I would suggest make time first thing in the morning, because it's like setting the compass straight, so that then you have time for silence to connect with the core values that lie within, which we otherwise forget through the day. We move very far away from those things. Secondly, connected with that is, whatever is your background, study those books, the scriptures or writings, and you'll find that whatever it is that's uplifting for you is important, because you have to feed your mind with nourishing thoughts. Through the rest of the day, the messages that we're getting are not very nourishing. They're depleting our energy. But if I can begin the day with time for myself in this way, it prepares me for being a kinder person, a more listening person, because so often we're not ready to listen. We just want to share. But no, to be able to listen with patience, with respect, and maybe it will teach me to have self-respect, be stable in that, so that then I can treat others with respect also. I think respect is a quality that used to be around, but in our busy materialistic lives, we've forgotten that. But we can start by having respect for the self, by making time for the self and connecting with our core values.
My question is very small. Being emotional is a strength or a weakness?
Thank you, Sister Jayanti, for this wonderful session. I have a question. In the current world where we have burnouts, and what are the self-care methods that you would suggest us to have a resilient workforce and a resilient one and everyone too? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this afternoon. My question is not directly related to oneself, but how will you transmit this message to the younger generation who may face much different set of challenges than we do now? Thank you.
Yeah, so three great questions. First, emotional self-care. Is that a strength or is it a weakness because you're admitting that you're not coping? Second question was about burnout. A lot of people in this room, I'm sure, are completely devoted to the work that they do, and they do it with all their heart and passion. But how do you avoid burnout and still feel like you're making a valuable contribution to the world? And the third question, how are we going to get this message out to the younger generation? Because they are experiencing a big disillusionment with the world that they have inherited from the generation before. And they have all the AI and the whole thing that's happening with technology, economic insecurity. There's so much for them to handle. How do we pass on this message to them?
I'd just like to say that emotions in themselves are not good or bad, negative or positive. It's what it is we are doing with them. For example, love is a beautiful emotion, but it can become a trap if it becomes possessiveness and jealousy and competition, which sometimes happens. Having self-respect is so close to the state of ego that it can very quickly trip into that. And so to be able to have that time for the self so that I'm able to be aware of what's going on means that I'm then able to recognize what the value of that emotion is. Is it pure? Is it useful? Or is it really moving into a different state? And self-awareness is so important to be able to see all this. And by that I mean turning inwards and seeing the self, doing the self-audit that I spoke about. So you can't say all emotions are bad or all emotions are good, because there's such a varying degree between them. But we can recognize the quality of our thinking, the quality of our feelings and the quality of our emotions and make sure that they stay positive and uplifting. Resilience and being able to increase my resilience, I need to be able to connect with the source so that when I'm giving, it's not just a giving, but I'm also replenishing. Because otherwise, every human soul is limited in its capacity. But to increase my inner capacity in my own reservoir, I need to be able to draw from above. Daddy Jayanti, who was the chief of our organization for many years, and I think many here within this gathering might know her and remember her, but she continued to serve, till she was 104. And she had started when she was very young. And so how did she do it? She would say, I'm very selfish and miserly. And I didn't believe either of those statements. But what she meant was that I don't want to give my energy away. I want to be able to draw from above and just be a channel to give to others so that there's always an abundance and never a shortage. And I'm never going to come to the state where I reach burnout. So that's the trick. And with young people, can we teach them by example? Can I model my behavior in such a way that they learn from that? Because I know that within families, values can't be taught, but they can be caught. And so if they see you responding with compassion and peace, if they see you making time for a little bit of solitude, silence, they'll learn from that. And I think that that really is the best way to be able to influence young people. But my hope is that more and more of the media is also beginning to look at the subject of spirituality and meditation. And young people are very tuned in with what social media and general media is saying. So my hope is that with the support of media, the message can also reach them. But the biggest message is who I am. That will reach out.
Thank you, Sister Jayanti. I think we've got time for one or two last questions. Yeah, Rodrigo.
Beautiful words. What is will be the work in ourselves? But what will be your recommendation for the leaders, for the countries, for the big companies, for the health of the workers and the community itself? There are a lot of workers that are suffering. If they are suffering, their family are suffering, and all the people are suffering. What will your recommendation to the leaders, to the presidents, to the old people for the health of everyone?
Ma'am, thank you so much. We all experience loneliness and grief from loss. And I know you mentioned attachment and detachment. How being like us, of course, so you would have things or people who are important and experienced the losses. What would be your advice to the rest of us who perhaps, of course, are not that detached from the world around us? How do we use these beautiful concepts that you've mentioned, the inner being, to go through the grief, the sorrow, the loneliness of things and life around us? Thank you and respect.
In terms of reaching the leaders, it's happening in the sense that corporate leaders are themselves making time for meditation. And when they do that and they see the benefit, they're creating spaces for their people, their colleagues, their workers to also make time for that. I see that happening certainly within the corporate world, but we're also beginning to see that happen with the political leaders. I'm sure that the trend is going to continue to magnify and grow at a fast speed. I've never met so many people who talk about the same thing as the world on fire in the way that they're talking now. I know one person who is a friend, and we've always kept that connection, but now she's talking about how she sees that meditation is a need. I've known her for 30 plus years, but it's now that she's talking about it. So I see that's happening everywhere in so many different directions. So I think that the message is reaching out and will reach further very, very quickly. I'd like to address the situation of bereavement in particular, because it is something that's happening suddenly, unexpectedly in different ways. If I go into silence myself, and I just remember the one who's dear to me, the one I love, then I just feel sorrow. Whether it's a sorrow of their transition or whether I'm feeling sorrow for myself that I'm going to be left without them. It's a bit of both. But can I turn that around a little, knowing that my thoughts and my feelings reach that individual soul wherever it may have gone, wherever it is on its journey. That's a fact. The soul connects with the power of thoughts. On a human level, in a normal way, if there's someone you love across the oceans, there's something that tells you that something is wrong and you want to reach out and help them. And so whether they're here in the physical dimension or they've gone beyond, our thoughts, our feelings reach the ones we love. And so can I, instead of just thinking about myself, really think about supporting them on their onward journey. And I can do that not only through my thoughts, but if I can connect with the divine and send that light to them, that's going to be of great value and benefit for them, so that they move on their transition smoothly, peacefully. And so my own soul, either soul, become more peaceful through that connection with the divine, but I'm also actually supporting the other through that love on their journey. And we can do this not just for one individual, but whenever there's something that really is hitting the world in a big way. We always organize meditations in which we are sending out that light to people in that part of the world so that they experience that light also. Loneliness is another whole big subject, but definitely if I see that someone is not their usual self, can I make a little bit of space? Everyone's busy, but it's always possible to make a little bit of space and spend a little bit of time with them in a practical way, just chatting with them. I don't have to find a solution to their problems. I don't have to try and resolve things, but just spending a bit of time with them is important. And so they don't feel that there's nobody they can reach out to. But also, if I can encourage them, inspire them to make connection with the one above, that's going to be very helpful for them also.
Real pearls of wisdom there. And I wonder, Sister Jayanti, if we could just bring our time together to a close with just a few moments of what you just talked about, sending our light into the world for those who are experiencing suffering in whatever form, bereavement, loss, illness, loneliness, and how we do that while still maintaining our connection with our own inner being, so that we're giving but we're not depleting. And we'll just bring our time together to a close like that.
Firstly, a big thank you to everybody who's made this happen, and for all of you for your participation and your very searching questions, thoughtful questions. Thank you. And now you know, sitting comfortably, both feet on the ground, the body relaxed. I come to the awareness of who I truly am, a being of light. I connect with the source, the supreme, the being of light. That light from above is shared with all those in need, wherever they may be. That light of love heals, nourishes, sustains, and transforms in whatever way is needed. And that light of love reaches the soul, allowing my own love to grow so that I can forgive and let go, so that my heart remains warm and compassionate at all times, and the light of love touches human hearts so that they too connect with the source. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Jayanti. And in order to express the thanks from all of us here today, I'd like to invite the Consul General of India, Mr. Rahul Shrivastava, to come and give a little note of appreciation. Thank you so much.
I'm totally speechless, Sister Jayanti, after this discourse. Totally out of words. But yes, on behalf of the Permanent Mission of India, I would like to thank Sister Jayanti for taking us through this journey. I would say the world in crisis, we all know that it has been created by others, but there was a crisis within myself, which I used to think is a very common midlife crisis for everybody of my age to go through, but it's not. It's basically not taking about the self-care, and thanks a lot, Sister Jayanti, for giving a perfect solution to that. I would also like to thank the DDG of ILO, Ms. Celeste Drake, for gracing us with their presence. I would also thank the ADG of WHO, Dr. Nakatani, who was here, and a big thanks to all the UN members and staff who had cooperated with us in making this event successful, the journalists, the press, media, audiovisual guys, and the whole team that has helped us out. I would like to inform that this is, such events are very difficult to actually conduct because there is no audience in such sort of events. Everybody is a participant. The division between the dais and the audience side, it dilutes because you also participate in it. It's not a music concert. And so we need a lot of volunteers. Thanks to the incredible volunteers from all the yoga schools, from different yoga schools who have given their time and who were here much before, and they had conducted this whole event in such a beautiful way. In the end, thanks a lot, and Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for beautiful words to bring our time together to a close. It has been a real honor to share this time with you. I hope you have some inspiration you can take with you and begin to apply in your own life. And I wish you well on your journey of emotional self-care. I think the take-home message for me from today is that it really is no longer a luxury, but as we face more delicate times, it will more and more become a necessity. So thank you to all of you for coming, and maybe we will see some of you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, in the front of the UN building for a display and experience of Hatha Yoga. That would be lovely if you can be there for that. But if not, we will see you again very soon. Thank you for coming. Take the light out into the world. Om Shanti and goodbye.